Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. In this video, we will be discussing about crystal lattice and unit cells. A crystal lattice is a regular three-dimensional arrangement of the constituent particles in space. So if we look at this diagram, this is a crystal lattice in which these blue marks are the constituent particles. These constituent particles can be an atom, a molecule, or an ion. And this blue shaded cube is a unit cell. So when many such unit cells are joined together, it forms a crystal lattice. So there are about 14 possible three-dimensional lattices, and these are known as Bravais lattices. Next, coming to the characteristics of a crystal lattice, each point in a lattice is called as the lattice point or the lattice site, and each point in a crystal lattice, it represents a constituent particles which can be an atom, a molecule, or an ion, and these lattice points are joined together by straight lines to define the geometry of the lattice. So these are the points which are characterized here. Next, coming to the unit cell. A unit cell is the smallest portion of a crystal lattice which, when repeated in different directions, generate the entire lattice. So this is an unit cell. So when such unit cells are joined together, it gives a crystal lattice. A unit cell is characterized by its angle and dimensions. So the dimensions along the three axes, that is A, B, and C. These edges may or may not be mutually perpendicular. So in this diagram, this A, B, and C, that is the three edges, this one A, this one B, and this one is the C. And number 2 is angles. So the angle between the edges, that is first alpha, which is in between B and C, next beta, which is in between A and C, and then gamma, which is in between A and B. So we can say that a unit cell is characterized by 6 parameters, that is A, B, and C, that are the three edges, and alpha, beta, and gamma, that are the angles. Next, coming to the types of unit cell. A unit cell is basically of two types. One is the primitive unit cell and other is the centered unit cell. A centered unit cell is basically subdivided into three types, that is body centered unit cell, face centered unit cell, and end centered unit cell. So this is a primitive unit cell. So a primitive, when the constituent particles occupies only the corners of an unit cell, we call it the primitive units. Next, coming to the centered unit cell. So when the constituent particles in a unit cell occupy positions other than the corners, in addition to that corners, it is known as the centered unit cell. So let us look at the three types of centered unit cell. As mentioned, centered unit cell is divided into three types, that is the body centered, face centered, and end centered. So in this body centered unit cell, there are 8 constituent particles at the 8 corners. Along with that, there is a constituent particle at the center of the cube, or we can say it at the body. Next, coming to the face centered. In face centered also, there will be 8 constituent particles at the 8 corners, and there will be 6 constituent particles on each face of the unit cell. And then in the end centered unit cell, there will be 8 constituent particles at the 8 corners of the unit cell, and 2 constituent particles at the opposite ends of the unit cell. So these are the 7 different types of primitive unit cell. that is cubic, tetragonal, orthorhombic, hexagonal, rhombohedral, monoclinic and triclinic. So let us see these 7 types of primitive unit cell in more details in these slides. So these are the 7 primitive unit cells and their possible variations. So the first is the cubic lattice system. So in this system, the possible variations are the primitive, the body centered and the face centered. Here the edge length will be equal, that is A will be equals to B, which is equal to C. The axial angles, all the axial angles will be equals to 90 degree. Example of such system is NaCl, zinc blende or copper. Next, coming to tetragonal, here the possible variations are primitive and body centered. Here only 2 edge lengths are equal, while the third edge length is not equal to the previous to the other 2. Here also all the angles will be equal to 90 degree. Example is white tin, titanium oxide, calcium sulfate, etc. Next, coming to the orthorhombic system, the possible variation in this case is the primitive, the body centered, the face centered and base centered. In this system, all the edge lengths are different, but the axial angles all are equal in this case also. And examples are the rhombic sulfur, potassium nitrate, barium sulfate. Next, coming to rhombohedral, the possible variation is only primitive. Here all the edge lengths are equal, but although the axial angles are equal, but they are not equal to 90 degree. Example is calcite or cinnabar. Next, coming to hexagonal, in this system the possible variation is primitive. Here only 2 of the edge lengths are equal, while the third one is not equal to the previous 2. Here the axial angles alpha and beta are equal to 90 degree, while that of gamma is equal to 120 degree. An example is graphite, zinc oxide, cadmium sulfate. Next, coming to the monoclinic system, the possible variations are primitive and base centered. The edge lengths are all different, that is they are not equal to one another. The angles alpha and gamma is equal to 90 degree, while that of beta is not equal to 90 degree. Example is monoclinic sulfur or sodium sulfate decahydrate. And the last system is the triclinic system. In this system, the possible variation is primitive. The edge lengths are not equal to one another. The axial angles are also not equal to one another. And some examples are potassium dichromate, copper sulfate pentahydrate, etc. So coming to the 14 types of Bravais lattices. So these are the 14 different types of Bravais lattices. So there is a triclinic lattice, there are 2 monoclinic lattices, there are 4 orthorhombic lattices, there are 2 tetragonal lattices, there is a hexagonal lattice, there is also 1 trigonal or rhombohedral lattice, and at last there are 3 cubic lattices.